It's my pleasure now to introduce your chair for today, Mr. Ian Jackson, Lead Senior GMP DP Inspector at MHRA. Ian, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. So this is the second in the series of MHRA webinars, collectively reviewing the post-transition guidance. As already mentioned, I'm Ian Jackson, so I'll be your chair for today. And I guess it's 4.5 years in the making since the referendum vote. We've had a number of false starts, so hence the level of interest in this session. So we have 3,000 delegates signed up currently. About 1,600 people have signed in at the moment. So the focus of this session is on GMP and GDP activity. So this is certainly reflected in the delegate list, and I can see representation from right across the supply chain. This is a standard slide that you'll see in each of the webinars, and it really just reflects that whilst the format of the presentations may be different, the content will be the same as the published guidance. So please note that we will not be updating the guidance to reflect the presentation. So take note of that, and do focus on the detail within the slides. So as I say, welcome to the webinar, and thank you all for joining. So we're now at 1,700. So the timing, the webinar is intended to last around 90 minutes. So the first half an hour will be dedicated to presentations, and then beyond that, we'll take time to look at the questions. I'll introduce you to the presenters shortly, and they will look at the published guidance. So just to reiterate and re-emphasise the message that we can only talk to and answer questions related to the published guidance. So at this point, I'd just like to acknowledge there is still much uncertainty, and as you can all appreciate, negotiations are ongoing, and it looks like they're going to go down to the wire. So I hope that is neither a surprise or a disappointment to you all. There are recordings, as mentioned previously, we're recording the sessions. We will deal with the questions at the end after the presentations. And if perchance we don't get to answer your specific question, then please do follow up and contact us directly at the contact details there at the MHRA, or feel free to contact and make contact through your trade association. So a little about the MHRA. So I'll just read the text from this slide. So from the 1st of January 2021, the MHRA will be the UK's standalone medicines and medical devices regulator. Transition from the EU will allow the UK to offer fully independent regulatory decisions for both devices and pharmaceuticals, both nationally and in joint work with other international regulators. The MHRA has now published guidance, which we will talk to, which will apply following the end of the transition period from the 1st of January 2021. So this slide just allows us to talk to the approach we're taking from the 1st of January. So whilst the MHRA will remain the regulator for medicines and medical devices in Northern Ireland, because of the Northern Ireland Protocol, Northern Ireland will continue to participate in the EU systems and will be bound by its rules and decisions. The government has published wider guidance on the 7th of August for UK businesses moving goods into, out of, or through Northern Ireland that will apply to medicines and medical devices. So Great Britain, i.e. England, Wales and Scotland, will operate to an initial legal framework that incorporates EU legislation into UK law. However, the UK regulator will be able to take sovereign regulatory decisions to help evolve the UK legal regime to meet future UK needs. and to take regulatory decisions that will also apply directly in Northern Ireland, as long as those decisions do not conflict with EU decisions whilst the Northern Ireland Protocol applies. This could mean removing unsafe medicines and medical devices from the market. So a brief summary of the agenda. So I've talked to some of the background there. So in and out of scope, that's clearly just to re-emphasise that what we can talk to is the published guidance. As already mentioned, there is uncertainty still out there, so we can't speculate whilst negotiations are ongoing. We've mentioned already, it's been mentioned that there will be some polls, so these are just very brief polls, and I'm sure you'll understand why we're asking the questions when we get to those. And then to introduce the presenters, so I'm delighted that we've got on board with us this afternoon David Churchwood, Tony Orme and Tracy Moore. They are experts within the MHRA and within their field of GMP and GDP, and they have been closely involved in the deliberations to date. So that they will focus on the published guidance, and we will also start by introducing what is not changing, so what is not changing in the near future, and then we'll follow up with the open session on the question and answer session. And so just to introduce the first poll, so we're edging up towards 1,700 delegates online, so please use your voting buttons now.
So GB is 83%, Northern Ireland 2%, 11% for EEA, and 3% for other. So I'll just hand over to David.
Thanks so much. Okay, so if we could perhaps move on to the next poll, which I think we have followed up, which just to ask if members of our audience are named on an authorization or working for an authorization holder. So this information is going to be helpful to us to understand the audience for today's session and to make sure that we have been able to get the information that we need to the right people. So that's how we're going to be using some of this information in these polls.
Thank you very much, David, and I can see the responses coming in really quickly now. Just give people another moment to put their responses in, and then as before we will close the poll and share those results with you. Okay, so I'm now, David, just going to close that poll and share the results.
Okay, thanks so much. So I think what those two polls have shown us is that we have significant representation on these webinars from organisations in Great Britain and also those working for an authorisation holder. And I guess that's as we had expected. Hopefully the information that we're about to give will be of particular interest and use to those people. And for those who are from other territories, other parts of the UK, or working in areas other than on manufacturing authorisations or wholesale authorisation holders, I'm sure that you can take that information away to your places of work as well. Could we have the next slide, please? Okay, so just to give you an outline of the published guidance as of when we put these slides together a couple of weeks ago, this guidance was in the main published at the beginning of September, and this is the content that we will be going through today. So we have the guidance on exporting active substances manufactured in Great Britain for use in the EEA and Northern Ireland. We have guidance on the list of approved countries for authorised human medicines. We have guidance on importing medicines on an approved country for import list and acting as a responsible person for imports. Now you may notice there that we don't have the guidance relating to the supply of investigational medicinal products listed here on this slide. That's because we'll be covering investigational medicinal product supply chains in the clinical trials webinar, which I believe is tomorrow morning. So if you have particular IMP interest, perhaps that's another event that perhaps you could register for and participate in. The final item on that list there is the supply of medicines to Northern Ireland from the 1st of January 2021. This is a specific piece of guidance that relates to Articles 40 and 41 of the EU Withdrawal Act, and that relates to products, and in this case medicines, that are already on the market before the end of the transition period. So that's a very specific area of the supply chain which we're able to provide advice on today, and my colleague Tracy Moore will provide you with more detail on that later in the presentation. But the main content of what we'll be speaking about today will sit in this guidance, and also in some further guidance which is due to be published within the next day or two. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so just we thought it'd be worth beginning by clarifying the things that will remain unchanged as a result of this transition work. So just to clarify that there are going to be no changes to the requirements for manufacturers of medicines to hold a manufacturing and import authorization, be that for authorized products or for investigational products. If you wholesale medicines, you will still be required to have a wholesale dealer's authorization. If you manufacture or import specials, so unlicensed medicines in the UK, that requires a manufacturer specials license. And indeed, if you manufacture, import or distribute active substances, or if you are a medicinal product broker, then if you're based in the UK again, then you still need to comply with the existing registration requirements. So all of those requirements will carry over, and indeed for the manufacturing and distribution authorization requirements, they will remain the same in respect of the requirements to have a qualified person for manufacturers and the responsible person for wholesalers. So essentially no change in how on a national basis we authorize these supply chain actors. If we think about Northern Ireland manufacturing, and this is both in terms of active substance and drug product, then activities such as importation of product from third countries, quality control testing, so batch testing, QP batch certification will all be recognised by the EU where that activity takes place in Northern Ireland. That will be under a UK issued authorization or registration. So those activities in Northern Ireland will be recognised by the European Union because Northern Ireland will be operating under the Northern Ireland Protocol, and they will be recognised in Great Britain as is part of the UK. We will continue to have the same approach to operating those licenses. So you can have a single manufacturing authorization that names Northern Ireland and Great Britain sites on that single authorization, just as we do today. And in the case of manufacturing authorizations, the QP will need to be based in the UK. So if the manufacturing facility is in Northern Ireland, then we will continue to accept a qualified person who may be resident in Great Britain to be named on that Northern Ireland authorization, and their batch certification activities performed under the Northern Ireland site will continue to be recognised in Europe. We will continue to publish the authorizations that we issue, so manufacturing wholesale authorizations, and also GMP and GDP certificates. Those will be published on a national replacement of the EU database. So we will be having the MHRA GMDP database, which will be operational from the 1st of January next year. So all of our inspection activity will be published on that database, and that's where you can find copies of authorizations as well. But it's worth noting that we will not be retrospectively backloading that database, so that will only be new information that is generated from the 1st of January. So for a period of time, if you're looking to verify your own or someone else's manufacturing or wholesale license, or wish to confirm the outcome of an inspection that MHRA has performed, you may need to check both UDRA GMDP and the MHRA GMDP database to find that information, because if it was information generated before the end of the transition period, that will be in the European database. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so if we look at active substances, so active substance importation into GB, we will be retaining the listing for existing countries. So I'm sure that those involved in this area of the supply chain will be aware that we currently have the free movement of active substances from countries with whom equivalence has been demonstrated. And for those countries that are not on that list, then there's a requirement for a written confirmation. And Great Britain will retain that approach through a list of countries for active substances. So initially, that list will be all countries in the EEA, plus other territories which are on the EU's white list for APIs. So the US, Republic of Korea, Switzerland and others. Where countries are not listed on that list, GB will continue to require a written confirmation from those countries. So if you're importing active substance from other large producing countries, India and China as good examples, we will still require a written confirmation from the regulatory authorities in those countries. If we think about active substance export from Great Britain to either the EEA or to Northern Ireland, then that will require an MHRA written confirmation for those active substances where they have been manufactured in GB. So this is because Northern Ireland is working to, or will be working to, the Northern Ireland Protocol. They will be following European pharmaceutical legislation. So the supply of an active substance manufactured in Great Britain to Northern Ireland will require a written confirmation from MHRA because Great Britain is currently, or it will be, a third country, and it's currently not on the white list for the European Union because that application has not yet been made. All of those written confirmations will be published on the MHRA website, so they're freely accessible. If a written confirmation is not available on the website, that may be for confidentiality reasons, so please do get in touch with us and we can provide the information as necessary to the active substance manufacturer. It's worth saying that if there are active substance importers or distributors in Great Britain supplying Northern Ireland, then that doesn't require a written confirmation because that relates to the manufacturing site for the active substance. Okay, can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so my last slide is just to run through quickly the list of approved countries. So from the 1st of January next year, the human medicines regulations will refer to lists of approved countries, and there are 3 different lists for different purposes. So we have a list of approved countries for importation of medicines under a wholesale dealer's license, and Tony Orme will talk to that shortly. We then have a list of batch testing of medicines during the standstill period. So that would include EEA countries and our existing MRA partners. And then we also have the list of territories for whom equivalence has been shown for the manufacturing of active substances. So essentially the white list, as I've just been talking about in the previous slide. So the list of approved countries will allow UK importers and wholesalers to continue to recognise QP certification and batch testing performed in certain countries during the standstill period. And the guidance provides that list of the countries and also the list of circumstances under which the lists can be used. So while those lists relate to other pieces of guidance, it's important to understand when those can be used so that you refer to the correct list. Okay, so if I could have the next slide, please, and I think that's a suitable point to hand over to my colleague Tony Orme.
Very much, David. So yes, to start with, I'm going to talk about timelines in relation to importation of medicines from an EEA state, which is on an approved country for import list. There's been quite a few questions in relation to this area. So the important thing to realise is if you hold a wholesale dealer's licence now and you currently import medicines into Great Britain from an EEA member state, that can continue on the 1st of January 2021. What you have to do is within 6 months notify us in writing of your intention to continue to import medicinal products from the country on the list. On the right hand side you will see what will be effectively the new portal for wholesale dealer's licence. So from January 2021 you'll be able to select that you import products from a country on a list as an option on your wholesale dealer's licence. So you don't need to do that until January, at which point the PCL portal will allow you to make that change. You have 6 months to do that. Within 2 years, you can nominate a responsible person for import who will carry out the specific RPI function. And I'll go into that function in the subsequent slides. But essentially, you have 2 years to nominate them. So nothing needs to be done now, and it doesn't need to be done immediately on the 1st of January either. So it's 6 months for the notification of the importation and 2 years for the RPI. If you do not hold a wholesale dealer's license and you need to apply for one as a result of potentially the changes, when you apply for a license, if it's granted after January 2021, it will need to be fully in line with the requirements to name a responsible person for import and to nominate the and to state that you're importing products from a country on a list. It is the responsible person for import's role to ensure a system is implemented to demonstrate that the licensed medicines imported into Great Britain from a country on the list have been QP certified. The RP does not need to do all the checks personally and may delegate activity. However, they remain responsible for the overall system of ensuring that QP certification has taken place. There needs to be a minimum of 1 RPI on a wholesale dealer's license. They're not down to the site level, so if you have 1 RPI for 1 license, that covers everything. So if you have a wholesale dealer's license that covers Great Britain and Northern Ireland, you still only need 1 RPI. Part of the role is to ensure that products imported into Great Britain from countries on the list have QP certification. Medicines must not be supplied to Great Britain. Sorry, medicines must be supplied to Great Britain via a UK wholesaler. So that means that medicines cannot be supplied directly from an EEA wholesaler to a UK authorised person, that is a hospital, doctor or retailer or similar. It must go via a UK licensed wholesaler. The requirement to name an RPI on the wholesale dealer's license will apply immediately to all new license applications made from 1st of January 2021. So if you wish to import licensed medicine from a listed country, that is something that needs to be done at that point. So the RPI, their role is to ensure that any authorised human medicine coming from a country on the list for use in Great Britain has QP certification taking place. And then for clarity, this is just repeating the guidance that's been previously published. It applies to an importation of a UK or Great Britain licensed medicine for use in Great Britain, a UK or Great Britain licensed medicine for supply to another third country, a Northern Ireland or approved country licensed medicine for supply to fulfil special clinical needs, a Northern Ireland medicine or an approved country licensed medicine imported as an introduced medicine for supply to another third country, or Northern Ireland or approved country licensed medicine for use as a parallel import. And for the last 3, the important point is those are the importations from a licensed country, not from Northern Ireland. Okay, so in terms of what evidence can be used for QP certification, I'll leave that slide up there because that is just repeating what has been previously published at the beginning of October. For market authorization holders and designated wholesalers that have access to the market authorization information, the QP certification is fairly straightforward to prove. There's plenty of examples there of access directly to the manufacturing records, QP certification, the company ERP system. So that information should be readily available when you're importing the product into Great Britain. Slightly more of a challenge for companies that are importing it for parallel importation. But in that case, if the product is authorised in a listed country, back certification may be verified by confirmation that the medicine has been purchased from an authorised wholesaler after it has been placed on the market in the listed country. An additional step that the RPI will be responsible for is for ensuring that any biological medicines have been independently batch released. So if you have on your wholesale dealer's license, you're dealing with immunological products and blood products, these may not be sold or supplied by the importing wholesale dealer in Great Britain until independent batch release certification is also confirmed. So that will be, again, reasonably easy for the market authorization holder to confirm. But if you are a parallel importer, then you have some additional steps you need to check before you can release the product for sale in Great Britain. So you need to check via a statement from the market authorization holder whether the batch release certificate has been issued by NIBSC or a mutual recognition agreement partner. A copy of the batch certificate issued, or get confirmation from the NIBSC that the batch certificate has been issued. And there's an email address there for you to check the details. Supply chain security remains, and prevention of falsified products remains a joint responsibility of the responsible person and the responsible person for import to ensure that the security and safety of products. As Great Britain will not be in the Falsified Medicines Directive system from 1/1/2021, evidence of decommissioning in the EU can be provided by can be provided by getting copies of the documentation for the person that decommissioned the product. So for any item that requires decommissioning, so that's parallel imported products or products regarding special clinical need, these are the ones that need to be decommissioned prior to receipt in Great Britain, and that should be done at the final point of the supply chain within the EA. The MHRA is responsible for maintaining the responsible person for import register. The details of how this are controlled are set out within the statutory instrument that's been published, and it sets out education requirements and the need for membership of a professional body. Within the regulations, it talks about the need for formal qualifications in either pharmacy, chemistry, medicine, biology, or related life science, and then any other education as deemed fit by the licensing authority. So we have looked at some equivalent qualifications, and we've considered level 5 qualification from the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, and being a lead auditor of the Chartered Quality Institute would be considered equivalent. And then for membership of a professional body, again, lists the members there. And for a number of questions we get asked about what would be an equivalent professional body. Professional bodies should have a code of conduct, some form of professional qualification, continued professional development, and also be on the HMRC's list of approved professional organisations. So if you're a qualified person, you're going to be automatically able to be a responsible person for import. If you're not a QP, then you need to have at least 2 years experience in performing the functions of a responsible person on a wholesale dealer's license, or something equivalent to that role. And if you meet those 3 limbs of education, professional body and experience, then you're able to be on the RPI register. And at that point, you can apply to become a responsible person for import, and then we assess suitability of you to carry that role. One of the things that needs to be done is, like the QP role, you need to be a resident in the UK to act as a responsible person for import on a wholesale dealer's license. Within the Northern Ireland Protocol, there's the unfettered access rights for medicines within Great Britain. So a Northern Ireland qualifying business may apply for a product license in Great Britain to enable their product in Northern Ireland to be supplied into Great Britain. These products have specific requirements for marketing authorizations and supply chain to qualify. So these must be, the marketing authorization must be the same as the product on the Northern Ireland market. The marketing authorization holder must be a Northern Ireland qualifying business. And great GB wholesalers must only purchase from the manufacturer or wholesaler in Northern Ireland or GB. So what this means is if there's a product with the PL, GB and the numbers suffix with a UA at the end, then the RP must ensure that these products have only come from a GB wholesaler or a Northern Ireland wholesaler. They cannot come from any other means. And then we're going to finish with a poll. So a question on, based on the guidance that we've published and you've just heard about, would you envisage that your organisation needs to apply for a responsible person for import? Okay, well, thanks very much. That's quite a large proportion of people that need an RPI. So we've got 1,700 people, I think, on tending at the moment. So that is a significant amount of applications that need to be processed over the 2 years. So thank you very much for that information. So I think I'm going to hand over to my colleague Tracy for the next slide.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Tony. So while we'll be covering the supply of medicines from Great Britain into Northern Ireland, the requirements for authorised and unlicensed medicines after the end of the transition period. With regards to the scope of today's session, for authorised products, however, the presentation will focus on those that are considered already in the supply chain. Due to the ongoing EU negotiations, we are unable today to talk to you regarding any medicines that would be traded into Northern Ireland after the 1st of January 21 that are not covered by Articles 40-41 of the EU Withdrawal Agreement provisions. Next slide, please. So with that in mind, confirming what I can talk to you today is regarding authorised medicines that qualify under Article 41 of the EU Withdrawal Agreement and how unlicensed specials will work post-transition. Next slide, please. I will start with the authorised products that would have been manufactured prior to the end of transition and considered as placed on the market. Article 41 of the Withdrawal Agreement talks to the arrangements that can occur for goods that are already placed on the market and made available on the market prior to 11 p.m. on the 31st of December 2020. So what does that mean? For a medicine to be placed on the market, it means that it is physically available for sale or supply, that is manufactured, tested, QP certified and released for sale in the company systems, and there has been a written or verbal agreement or offer of an agreement to transfer ownership of the medicine to another legal entity. Simply placing a manufacturing order for completion after the 11 p.m. on the 31st of December 2020 is insufficient to qualify. For clarity, a medicine already in the supply chain before 11 p.m. on the 31st of December 2020, e.g. stored by a wholesaler in Great Britain, who has been sold or supplied the medicine, can continue for it to be sold under Article 41 without any additional regulatory requirements. The justification being that it must have been placed on the market to move through the supply chain and physically be with that wholesaler. An example where the provision has not been met is a medicine has been QP certified and is in the manufacturer's or wholesaler's warehouse in the UK before the end of the transition period. It is marked as available for sale or supply in their system. Ownership of the medicine has not transferred to another legal entity before the end of the transition period, and no offer has been made by another legal entity to take ownership of the medicine before the end of the transition period. This medicine has therefore not been placed on the market and does not qualify for the provisions under Article 41, as ownership has not been transferred to another legal entity or an offer has not been made to the manufacturer by another legal entity. Next slide, please. Okay, so to enable the supply chain verification, manufacturers are encouraged to ensure that the data placing on the market is visible to the supply chain. This could be a declaration from the wholesaler that the stock was within their systems prior to the cut-off time of 11 p.m. on the 31st December 2020. The wholesale dealer or manufacturer in GB will be responsible for confirming that the person who is supplied in Northern Ireland is authorised to receive this. The wholesaler or manufacturer must undertake this prior to agreeing to supply the products in Northern Ireland. Medicines placed on the market before 11 p.m. of the 31st December 2020 may be received and may be supplied to a wholesaler or another authorised person in Northern Ireland. However, evidence is required for the status as being on the market prior to 11 p.m. on the 31st December 2020, and that is a requirement of Article 42 of the Withdrawal Agreement. So just to clarify, prior to 11 p.m. on the 31st December 2020, can supply a wholesaler. After this time, for newly received product checks would have to be made, and manufacturers are encouraged to ensure that the data placing on the market is visible to the supply chain, and by doing so are confirming that the order has been made previously, and that the order has been previously placed, allowing it for transfer of ownership by the cut-off date also. Okay, next slide, please. So we have a question for you. Given the evidence requirement, do you think that it would be a good idea to provide a simple, non-mandatory template for this declaration? Do you think this would be helpful? Okay, I'm just waiting until the answers are in. Okay, we have the answers. Okay, so a helpful non-mandatory template is a yes. Okay, thank you very much for taking the time to do that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the previous slides were associated with authorised products that had been placed on the market prior to 11 p.m. on the 31st of December 2020. I'm going to move now to talk about unlicensed medicines. So unlike unauthorised products, unlicensed medicines regulation is actually a national competence, and it's covered by the Human Medicines Regulations 2012 as amended. This flows from the EU Directive 2183 Article 5.1. So those of you familiar with specials will know that these medicines are dealt with under Regulation 167 of the Human Medicines Regulations. And because this is a national competence, there is no implication with regards to the Northern Ireland Protocol and specials and how they can flow freely between Northern Ireland and GB under the existing legislation. The process for the import of specials is retained as is, and import notifications are still required whether this to be imported into GB or Northern Ireland.
Hopefully you can see the screen, and there's just a reminder to register with us if particularly for MA holders who are looking to submit any registrations going forward. So you'll see that on the other webinars as well, that slide. So and a reminder again, if you do have questions that haven't been answered, or you've got any pressing need, to then feel free to contact us through the customer service centre. So they are well briefed in terms of transition period and the end thereof, to deal with questions in the first instance, and if not, they will disseminate those questions through to the relevant parts of the MHRA for fielding. And a reminder also to liaise with your trade association. So please, let's keep the communication channels open. But I will thank you all for attending today and signing up to the webinar. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got what you wanted out of the session. And I hope you understand that there are areas that we couldn't talk to, but hopefully we'll be able to shed some light on those as negotiations continue. Please do keep an eye on the MHRA gov.uk page, where we will publish updated guidance or new guidance as it's issued and as we can. And with that, I will say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for your time.